Hi, welcome to Tech Talks. I'm Zach Hirsch, and I'm sitting here with Stephen King, the Chief Innovation Officer of Blue Sky Innovations.
Glad to be here. Thanks for having us.
Yeah. So today I'm going to be asking you about sort of the obstacles for VR adoption and where VR is. Why are we not sort of swimming in the metaverse right now?
Yeah. So VR adoption has not taken off like I had perceived that it would or hoped. I see great value in virtual reality and what it can do and taking you to a different time and place and that you engage in content in new ways. And I saw great value in that. And so I was hoping it would have taken off a lot faster. I think Zuckerberg and others would have said the same thing. I think it's one of those that we're seeing specific use cases for education, for certain business use cases. There are uses for it in addition to the gaming, but we're not seeing it where people are having continual multi-times a day usage and coming back to it for that type of experience like we see with other devices.
For gaming, it makes sense. It's immersive. It is all like perfect for that. Why do you think it hasn't really found a foothold in these other applications like the workplace and stuff that influencers thought it might?
Yeah. So I think there's several reasons. Number one is I would say the friction of the process. So originally you had to have a gaming machine, you had to have all these different things, you got the cables, and that was hard. So getting set up on VR the first time, even though we now have a portable device, it's still a little bit, you gotta set up your Guardian, and so you're not just able to just like jump in, okay? And so I think there's a little bit of friction in the user experience, and so I think we can solve that. That is a solvable problem. Right now we have what I would call is box on face. And box on face is essentially this really weird thing that we're gonna take a piece of electronics, we're gonna strap it to our head where we can't see all the things happening around us, and there's a little bit of fear and things that come with that. And so I think as long as we have this big box on face, that's gonna be a problem. And then I think there's some other pieces to it that have to do with price. I think price is a key factor. This is an extra device that's not necessary for my work or school, and so you've got to be able to have some discretionary income to be able to do that, and so that doesn't fit everyone. But really, I think the hard part right now is you have this, there's not enough people out there for the big app developers to make money on the platform, and there's not enough apps, so people aren't getting on the platform. So you have this problem that are like helping and hurting each other, and so ultimately you've got to get a large number of people there and the apps to get the people to come and to do things there.
So do you think that the metaverse future, the virtual reality future, is sort of in our future, or do you think that is sort of a pipe dream?
I absolutely think the metaverse will be something as a part of how we interact with people. I do. I don't think it's going to become our 24 hours a day where you just go in the metaverse and you do all your work, play, everything in the metaverse. So I apply it to something like your favorite streaming service. You take a specific amount of time that you've committed to this, and sometimes it extends longer than you intended and you binge watch something. But maybe for us it's the end of the day, the kids are in bed, and my wife and I will sit down with the focused purpose of consuming this content. I think that's the way you're going to see the metaverse play out, is that people are going to engage with content in this virtual world, put on that headset, and do it for a set amount of time just because that's how they want to escape or whatever. We're a long way off from it being you're just going to sit in your house and do that for 24 hours or 12 hours of your working day. I just don't see that playing out. And really, I see that because the human interaction experience. There's some cool things you can do with human interaction where spatial audio and the idea of space matters and people get to get close and connect. But with avatars not being, they're still cartoon avatars, it still doesn't have that feeling in the same way of connection that we see in either something like FaceTime or connecting in person. So it's got a long way to go, but we'll have to see how that plays out.
So what do you think are the sort of things that VR will offer for these like entertainment experiences that is better than just sort of sitting in bed with an iPad watching Netflix?
Yeah. Well, first of all, there's going to be immersive, so I'll feel like I'm there, which is a whole new way of storytelling, a whole new way of filmmaking. We have to think about things in different ways. And so that's something we have to really consider and think about. When we see these worlds, they'll be interactive. We'll be able to make choices. We'll have agency in the story, and AI will be a technology that's going to help us to do that. And so on those like big features, so the idea that we would have a the equivalent of a blockbuster movie be presented in VR first, and that would be the way it was built. I think we're still 5 to 10 years from seeing that type of an experience, but when we get there, it will be very interactive, very immersive, and I think people will come away with a very different feeling than they do with a traditional movie.
So what do you think will be the sort of inflection point because right now I feel like none of the industry is really moving towards that in a major way. What do you think it'll be a hardware thing, a marketing thing? What do you think will get us sort of to that future?
So in 2014, Mark Zuckerberg said you needed 50 to 100 million people on the platform to make it a viable platform. I think he was right, but we've reached 100 million headsets, but we don't have 100 million people on the platforms, right? So we don't have people coming back for that repeat usage, and that's a problem for VR. So until we start seeing that, big studios, big companies are not going to make that investment. So I think that's a key piece is you just got to get people to do it. It's got to be a good enough experience that people want to do it over and over again and not just one time, oh, that was cool. Marketing is a piece of it, getting the price down, getting the user experience, cutting the friction down. All these things have to add up together, and they're all going to, everyone's working on different parts of that problem. And ultimately, when those problems all kind of get solved, then we'll actually be there. So maybe we look at it like the iPad, right? When the iPad came out, that was 13 years ago. Does everybody have an iPad today? No. A lot of people have tablets. People are making a lot of money creating games for tablets, creating all kinds of apps for tablets. And so it's a good ecosystem, it's valuable, but it hasn't become the only thing. And so I think we'll see VR in the same way. We'll still have our laptops, we might have an iPad or a tablet device, and we would also have this VR experience.
Do you think there are any sort of applications where the marketing, the price, the hardware, everything you've been talking about has sort of gotten there and it would be great and we're there, but just people have not adopted it for whatever reason?
Well, I think there's a lot of places in education and training that this is really valuable. There's nothing that beats putting somebody in a headset and being able to take them to a different time and place to experience a situation that doesn't just impact their mind, but how their behavior changes, right? Educational use of VR has significant possibilities, and it just hasn't really been adopted. I think maybe that's price right now. That's a big holding piece to that. But I think you're going to see there's different enterprise applications where companies are going to say, this is it, and this is how we're going to use it, and they're going to buy that. And ultimately, that would help the larger ecosystem because you'd have all these different smaller user groups doing it. But necessary as we move forward.
So, say you're put at the reins of VR moving forward. What is sort of, the direction you take it? What is your dream for the future of VR, and why do you think that exact future isn't happening?
If I was working for one of the major technology companies, I think I would focus on getting suppliers that can get us a device that is smaller, more easy to use, kind of well-designed, kind of not this whole box-on-face concept. So I'd spend a lot of money, time, and effort there. I would also spend a lot of time figuring out what are the best uses of VR? What can I only do in VR that I can't do anywhere else? What are the things that people will actually spend time doing over and over and over again? Where it's not just novelty, but it's experience that I must have. And I think I would spend a lot of time developing those experiences and working with studios. In the same way that Netflix will hire 100 studios to produce all these different shows and see what works, I think that's really where we're gonna have to be with VR, is that we're gonna have so many different apps and game experiences that are out there till we see what works, and that's when people will start adopting it.
So do you think VR can sort of survive the billions of future dollars that still need to be put into it for it to reach that audience?
I do, because I think there's places that people are already using it and are going to continue to use it. So I think we're going to see it at the enterprise level that will keep and maintain some revenue for those companies who are investing in it. And so they'll be able to continue to see revenue from the enterprise level, and then eventually the consumer level will hit. And they'll be able to really take off with a large audience. But there's enough income right now for doing it in education and training and other things that I think it'll make it.
I guess another little pivot, but do you use VR every day in your life?
Great question. I use it for educational purposes and for different pieces of it. I don't use it every day. My kids really like it, but we have limits on their screen time and everything, so they don't get to use it every day. My kids use it a lot more than I do. But I enjoy it. I think there's certain things that we do and do well in VR, but it's not what I'm answering email in. It's not what I'm doing my daily work in. But there's certain training things that we do, certain creative stuff that we do, and then there's my favorite games.
What needs to happen before it is like you are one of the people who's using it every day or every couple of days and finding like real use for it in your personal life?
Yeah. I think ease of use. If we can get this to where it's the same way as just flipping on my laptop, as I can just put the headset on and I'm into my work environment, that will have significant impact on that daily use. And so if I can be more productive in VR than I can in the regular world, then that's going to see much more uses. And so what will it take to get there? More processing power, kind of more better quality graphics and getting up to those 4 and 8K screens. And so, which we're getting there, right? Those are already starting to come out in devices. And so, so I think we're close, but again, with the price, I think to get those nice, high quality devices, there's not as many people using them yet.
Do you think VR is inevitable?
Is it inevitable? Yes. I mean, I think we're here today. Like, we have VR. I think the question is the metaverse going to happen?
Yeah.
Is that inevitable? I think there will be people who will always engage in different places. The same way that there's chat rooms that people go to, that there's Discord, there's all these different places people go to. There will be the metaverse in that sense. Will there be this uber metaverse that is all apps and everybody's consuming in, equivalent to the internet? I don't know. I think the internet is valuable for so many different reasons, but one is accessibility for so many people across the world with different comings with different speeds and different financial significant, like, you know, their financial situations, where people are coming from with disabilities, and the internet can solve those problems. But we've also had 25 years to do that, right? So the internet has had a long time to develop and get there. So we can't just say the metaverse tomorrow has to be able to do the same thing the internet does. I think it will have a lot of engagement. People will use it, but I don't see that future being what you see in Ready Player One, where everybody just does that instead of going to work. It's kind of a longer time, but maybe 10 years from now, maybe that is the case.
How do you think VR sort of plays into a future of, you know, these big tech companies really dominating our lives, and do you think that's avoidable?
I think we are at a place in our world where the large tech companies are always going to be a part of our lives. If we're going to be connected to the world, it's going to take us being able to do that on large networks, and those are, you know, to be financially sustainable, have to be, right, really large companies, and they're going to be collecting data that they can use for that. And so that's inevitable if it's in the metaverse or not, if it's in a headset or not. You know, there's some people have concerns about, you know, about the headsets and health and safety pieces, right? Well, when I was a kid, they used to tell me not to get too close to the TV, it'll hurt your eyes. Well, now we have them right in front of us because we've learned more. And so maybe there's fears about it, but as we learn more, we can deal with those and work through it and give the best health and safety experience for people. I think we are always going to be engaging with large corporations because there's a lot of money to be made where you have a large audience. So if you can bring a bunch of people together, then that's where those corporations are going to be. And so I think it is inevitable that if there is a metaverse and people collecting and gather there, then the companies will be there and they will be collecting data and they'll be engaging with people, and that will be a service that they provide, and they'll be providing all kinds of different services. And then we have our own new ecosystem, which is what the metaverse promises, but it's not going to happen without those corporations.
Well, thank you, Stephen, so much for taking the time to talk with me today. And be sure to follow UNC Blue Sky on all of our social media platforms to stay up to date with the latest Tech Talk episodes.